This supplement can literally save your life. That's no cap. Nattokinase, the blood clot destroyer. This series outlines esoteric supplements, supplements that aren't in the limelight, the lesser known supplements, supplements that have been around for a millennia. Supplements that have been around for a long time. Supplements that Big Pharma would rip from you in a heartbeat if they could. So today let's talk about Nattokinase. Never heard of it? Well, neither had I, until a friend of mine put me onto it about a year ago, and I own supplement stores, so don't feel bad. But before we talk about the supplement Nattokinase, we have to first discuss blood clots and PEDs. I'm not sure how good of an idea it is to start a YouTube channel and talk about PEDs and blood clots on your third video, but fuck it, YOLO. What is a blood clot? A blood clot is a plug of platelets and red blood cells that get caught on waxy cholesterol and bound together by a protein called fibrin. Now remember that fibrin is going to play a big part in this whole video later on. Think of fibrin like webbing. The red blood cells and the platelets get caught up on bad cholesterols in a deep vein, and fibrin forms like a web holding them together, forming a plug. These clots often form in a deep vein, and a lot of you may have heard of DVT, deep vein thrombosis. It's a very serious condition, and one that is common with performance-enhanced athletes. And I'll tell you why a little later in this video. The problem with these clots, aside from restricting circulation, is that if they break free and end up in your lungs, so if it travels from your leg to your lungs, that's called a pulmonary embolism, and those are quite often fatal. Blood clots are caused by a lot of factors, a lot of different factors. Often it's a bunch of these factors put together. Bad cholesterol, obesity, diet, genetics, which brings us to performance-enhancing drugs, everyone's favorite topic. Some steroids cause an elevated red blood cell count. Now it's kind of a catch-22 because a higher red blood cell count means more oxygen in the blood, which is an aid for training. A high red blood cell count isn't necessarily a bad thing, although it can become a bad thing. An elevated red blood cell count causes high blood pressure and a thickening of the blood, which is why everybody on PEDs, even TRT, should donate their blood every 6 months. But also, the higher the red blood cell count, the more likely it is for these cells to get hung up on that waxy cholesterol. It's like a drain pipe. The more debris going down the pipe, the more likely it is that the pipe would get clogged. All right, so that's like a rough outline of a blood clot, specifically a deep vein thrombosis in your arms or in your legs. There's different types of clots. You can get a blood clot in your brain, but I'm talking specifically about blood clots forming in a deep vein. So now let's enter Nattokinase. Nattokinase is an enzyme derived from natto. Natto is a traditional Japanese dish. It's a sticky, stinky, fermented soybean. Apparently it stinks. It's an acquired taste. So luckily you don't have to eat it because it's in a supplement form. And thanks to the work of Dr. Sumi in 1980, an enzyme was isolated from natto that did something amazing. It dissolved blood clots by breaking down fibrin, the fibrin protein that binds together blood clots in the first place. And the best part about this was that Nattokinase is a supplement that can pass through the digestive tract. It doesn't get destroyed in the small intestines. It actually passes through into the bloodstream, which is super important because a lot of supplements don't do that. So like, for example, I talked about in another video, glutathione. Glutathione is a supplement that a lot of people take, but it doesn't survive the digestive process. Not all supplements do. Now, there's tons of studies on Nattokinase, but there's one in particular, the most famous one that I've read is the dog study. And unfortunately, they tested this out on some dogs. When there's convicted pedophiles available, it blows my mind why we have to test on animals at all. So in this study, they took male dogs and they artificially induced a blood clot, deep vein thrombosis in their legs. And half of the dogs received Nattokinase and the other half received a placebo. In the dogs that received the Nattokinase, every single one of them rapidly showed signs of improvement, and within 5 hours, the clots were dissolved and the dogs were better. The dogs that received a placebo, after 18 hours, none of them had improved. Aside from Nattokinase's effects on blood clotting, it lowers blood pressure. So if you're on blood pressure medicine, you might want to consult a doctor before taking it. It lowers your chance of developing cardiovascular disease. It can it can reduce nasal polyps. It can reduce the size of nasal polyps, so you don't have to get surgery. That's cool. It's fucking gross, but it's cool. Another thing it does is it improves blood flow and circulation. If you're a lifter, if you're on PEDs, if you're interested in heart health, Nattokinase. I've read papers that say that it's been around for 10,000 years. Long story short, if you're at risk of cardiovascular disease, if you're interested in overall heart health or not developing blood clots, if you take HRT or TRT, if you train, but especially if you have some risk factors, you should consider looking into Nattokinase yourself. Side note, DVT, deep vein thrombosis, these cardiovascular incidences are lowest amongst Asians. So maybe it's something they're eating. I supplement 2 grams of Nattokinase every single morning, and I have been since my friend put me onto this. Shout out to Big Frank, Big Frankie Pro, professional strongman, 5th strongest man in the world in his weight class. Great guy. I take 2 grams every single morning in its raw form. In my store, Underground Nutrition, I carry a company called AD Life, Project AD, and they have a heart supplement. It's called AD Life Heart. And that has a small amount of another name for Nattokinase, which is K2M7. And that's I think it has 45 micrograms in it. That's just one of the ingredients. But I would say that's more of a preventative heart supplement, overall heart health. Where if you're in a situation where you think that blood clots run in your family, or again, if you're on TRT, or if you have some risk factors, you may want to consider Nattokinase in a much higher dose. Like I said, I take 2 grams. I'll link the brand that I take in the description. I don't get any money for that. I literally just did some research and found it and ordered it because it had some good reviews. I'll link that in the description. I'll link Project AD's heart health supplement in the description as well for people that just want a good heart supplement. And if you like these esoteric supplement reviews, smash that like button, inject that subscription button with your finger. We would really appreciate it. Thank you for watching.